This podcast is for a mature audience and may be viewed as inappropriate or insensitive to some. Listener discretion is advised. The intention is to share conversation of like and unlike-minded individuals as they try to be the best them they can be in a life full of challenges, searching for love, acceptance, and positivity. Call 669-241-1422 and share yourself or catch up with SweetBaby Jay for an anonymous face-to-face interview. Feel free to call in with questions, stories, thoughts, or anything you would love to talk about and share. Nothing is off the table when talking sweet with SweetBaby Jay at 669-241-1422.
Ladies and gents and ladies, once again, you are here talking sweet with SweetBaby Jay. As always, a no-face, no-case scenario, but we'd love to give the opportunity for anyone to share their name. Young Stallion, what's your name, man? You going to share it or?
My name is glengraham4.0, and we are cousins.
There you go, 4.0. Some people still on 2.0. You on 4.0?
I'm on 4.0.
Ahead of the times. I'm not mad at it.
Yes, sir.
So what's good, cuz? I mean, starting from the bottom, now you here. We go from way, way, way back. How would you say your beginning years were coming from the Bronx and everything?
Coming from the Bronx, like how far you want me to go back?
Man, how do you remember the Bronx? Right now, the Bronx is actually a beautiful place to live. That wasn't always the case, I guess, depending on where in the Bronx. Don't want to generalize, but Bronx was pretty tough at one point.
The Bronx was always a beautiful place to live. It was rough. Where I come up, Bronx River Projects, it was a rough place. Our parents raised us, not street kids by any means, but I grew up in the projects. So the beauty part of it is that I learned, there were a lot of other kids in the area that weren't into street life. We all worked and we were doing what we had to do in terms of making money, whether it was delivering newspapers, the honest route. And then I had other friends that they were in the street life. What I learned from them is I learned about the streets. I'm not a street guy, but I learned how to move in the streets, avoid trouble. Like, I don't count my money out. Like, there's some people that still count their money at the ATM. Straight at there. I don't count my money at the ATM facing the window. I learned from them a lot of things. And I also learned, unfortunately, a lot of them is not here today because they chose to keep going down that path. So I learned that there's you could be street smart as you want, but if you're not willing to give that up at a certain point, drug dealers don't retire, so to speak.
They get retired.
They retire you. So I learned all of that stuff, people incarcerated, and
what made you stay away from that, though, other than your parents, guiding you towards a different direction? Because I think even these people that went down that route, I could only imagine their parents tried.
Well, just a little backstory about some of the people that I grew up with. Some of them grew up in single-parent household, which doesn't really excuse anything, but it's different. I grew up, my mom and my father in my life, and some of my friends who also had both parents still chose the street life. One of the things was I was raised from early not to look for approval. So I think a lot of times people look for approval and they'll do things just to get approval. I posted a video recently and I was doing some nunchucks scenario online, and this guy from my area, he said, "Why didn't you ever join Wolfox?" Now, Wolfox was a martial arts studio in my neighborhood, but I went to visit it. All the kids were, doing it at the time, but I went there, and no disrespect to the instructor, but the way in which he was instructing them, it was like, if you ever watched The Karate Kid, where the guy punched you in your chest and all that stuff. I wasn't afraid of getting hit, but I was more afraid of, I needed to channel my anger, my energy somewhere positive, and I felt like an instructor, they have to be a little bit more, show you about humility more, and I wasn't looking to hurt people or bully people, so it didn't gel with me, so I decided not to join there at the time.
So it sounds like there was a good guidance from your parents, and beyond that, you had a lot of common sense. You were not a follower. You were definitely a leader. You didn't need to be guided to do things. You knew what was good and bad.
That, and also I'll tell you what really changed, because I was doing dumb stuff. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I didn't do anything stupid. I did a lot of dumb things. One, I didn't think my life was valuable at some point. So I did a lot of stupid things, going places, hanging out with people that I wasn't supposed to hang out with. And What really changed is when I had when my parents had my little brother Brandon and Clarence eventually, but Brandon was the first because Greg was the one right under me. He was close to me in age, but when Brandon was born, I looked at his eyes and I was like, man, I know what it's like. I have an idea what it's like for somebody to be a father, because I looked at my brother and I said, if I keep down this path, I'm not the worst guy yet, but if I keep down this path, how can I tell him not to follow me?
What made you not value your life?
It didn't help growing up in a household where, you weren't, I was the black sheep at the time. And so, like there was a lot of difficulties I struggled with, like staying focused. So I was all over the place in terms of my attention span is short. I had to learn not to control my attention span. I still suffer from it, but the difference is I learned to control it. So one of the things, if I get bored, easily, I will be all over the place. And so they tried to put me in a special class. And my mother, she told them not to do that. So I avoided that. But just in terms of how I learned, back in the day, they didn't do a lot of studying. And if you didn't learn a certain way, they just immediately was like, yo, this guy is mentally incapable. I'm special ed, or whatever you want to call it, mentally challenged. And so for a lot of times, I started to take that with me as I became an adult. I started being like, so when I said I didn't feel like my life had value, I was thinking that if I can't be, I can't get the job I want, or I can't get, I'm limited in these areas. I started looking at myself as limited. And so you look at yourself as limited, you walk around and you don't care. So I stopped caring about anything.
So the establishment
made me feel that way.
Made you feel that your life had little value.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
So I always say education is really about who teaches it and how they teach it, because you can really guide a child down one path by not investing in him, and you can also guide another by really showing that you have value. What was the dumbest thing you ever did growing up?
There's so many.
To give me the top two.
The top two. Man, having illegal firearms in my household. My father was talking about it recently, and I was like,
he knew?
No, he doesn't know. He has no idea.
Well, he'll know now.
I mean, he'll know if he listens to the podcast, but I mean, I'm a grown up, so I mean.
And you don't live in his house anymore.
It is what it is. But what happened was there was a threat made on my brother's life, Greg, and so I started collecting firearms, illegal firearms, and I had them.
You said collecting? Not
Yes.
a firearm, collecting.
I had firearms in my household.
Okay.
So I had like about 3 that I can remember, and I put them in the speaker. I had these big speakers, and I put them in there. Of course, I didn't have the magazine with them, but they were illegal. You know what I'm saying? So the dumbest thing, I was in my house, and I was cleaning it, and I didn't know there was one in the chamber.
Get the hell out.
Yeah, and it went off in my house and hit the bathroom tile. It made a hole in the wall, a small hole, because it was it was my smaller caliber, thank goodness. And I believe it was a 25.
22?
25.
Oh, okay.
25. And thank goodness it was that one that went off, because the other ones were bigger caliber. They would have put a hole through that wall. So the issue is I had to lie. My parents like, what was that noise? And I was like, oh, I think it was somebody shooting off the, because luckily for me, there was a lot of shooting in my area. So
blame it on some random dude.
That was one of the dumbest things, having firearms and really what it was, I just had to make better decisions about don't be around those types of people. I didn't know.
Did you even know how to truly handle a firearm, cleaning it, making sure that there's no round in the chamber? Because a lot of people buy firearms, but yet they have zero knowledge on the responsibility that comes with it. You see people in videos, brandishing guns, and then you hear a round go off. There's clearly a lack of knowledge when it comes to that. Do you feel that you had that knowledge?
I had a lack of knowledge for sure. But one thing, I did have a certain level of respect for fire. I knew that it was dangerous, and I was not proud to have it. I was looking at it as it was a way to defend myself. So for me, it was never a proud thing. Like there's no pictures with it. I never took pictures with it. I see people nowadays, they be on the internet with it. I'm like, I had it because my area, I was scared to be in my area.
Well, you don't see pictures of you with it. You're also from a different time.
Nah, there was guys I grew up with that took pictures with their firearms from back in the day.
So do you think that there's a difference in how things were done then to how they are now with the youth?
Not really. There was guys in my neighborhood that they had a firearm and you never knew. I was one of those guys. Nobody, I could tell you maybe one or two people know that I had a firearm. My family didn't know that I had a firearm.
Father would have killed you, and I know that for a fact.
He would have killed me for sure. So what I know now, I should have never did it. But like I said, it's easy to be like, yo, you shouldn't have a firearm. But when you grow up in an area where where people's telling you they're not going to fight you. I never was afraid of fighting anybody. But when people start telling you, oh, I'm not fighting you, you too big. Then what you think? I started investing in every type of weapon that you could think of. Nunchucks, I had knives, and I had firearms. So depending on what the level of the threat you was doing, I was going to bring one of those things with me.
He was a black Rambo.
I was a black Rambo.
He was a little black Rambo. Now you a 9-to-5 killer.
Now I'm a 9-to-5 killer. Now those days, thankfully, is gone. And what you said earlier about knowledge is a powerful thing, because now you know there's tools you could use now to defend yourself. You don't need to do anything illegal. There's definitely tools, and knowledge is a tool.
Now, as I said, you are a 9-to-5 killer now.
Yes, sir.
Taking no shorts, taking no gains. But how did you get here?
How did I get here? Well, first of all, 9-5 killers, for anybody wondering, is anybody that I interview people that have killed their day jobs to pursue their passion. So one of the things that has been in my life consistently is the need to do better and be better. But a lot of times, you were not rewarded for untraditional thinking, thinking outside the box, being a leader. People say they want leaders, but they tell you what to say and how to lead. And so I was never really with that. So I've struggled a lot at jobs. I'm not anti-establishment. What it is you have to explain what it is you want me to do and what's the origin of it. I'm not like just a person that's going to just follow what you say without question. And so working at a job, or several jobs, and that being happened and being let go and being fired, or just not getting promotions. This is how 9-5 Killers was born. My last job, I was there for 7 years, and after being passed over countless times for advancement in the company, I decided to start 9-5 Killers. It was just a way to express myself. I was frustrated.
I got a question for you.
Yeah. Well, let me finish first, and then you can get your question. So basically, I was frustrated, and what they did was they didn't allow me the strength or the position to move up. It started out with a movie idea, and then I said what would be cooler is starting this thing and then leaving my job eventually, doing this full time. And then the pandemic hit, and it happened a year earlier than I expected. So here we are.
You say that it's not that you're anti-establishment, but yet you would question, I guess, the boss, the manager, supervisor as to why. Do you feel that may have had something to do with why you may have been passive for those promotions, because you had a mindset that was beyond where they wanted you to be?
No, not at all. I know why I was passed over.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Why was you passed over?
Okay. So you want the bold truth? And this is something that I never hid from anybody. Any manager asked me what I thought it was. It was that I was black. Being black, and then not just being black, but being the type of black person that scares certain people is as you a threat.
What made you think that they were scared of you?
They're scared of the ideas. Like it's no secret to anybody that knows me. I can motivate people, and something that makes people afraid of leaders, a leader that's not in the matrix with them, is that you have the power to change perception. And I realized that when I actually had a student that I used to train when I was doing web design. And I remember this guy, I know exactly the fear, because this guy, I was training a bunch of teenagers, and he would come into class, and if he was having a bad day, the whole class had a bad day, because they followed this dude. And so if he was making noise, they made noise. So one day I pulled him to the side, and I said, listen, man, now this is how you treat a leader when you see a leader. I said, man, you are a natural born leader. But unfortunately, I'm a leader too, and there's only room for one. And I said, what we can do, how we can work together is, I need you to help me get these other guys in line. Said what I would do is, you will be so I made him, like, he was accountable. He was a monitor. And it wasn't a monitor and telling on people, but a role model. I took time. I trained him more.
You invested
and
more.
I invested more time in him, and he got everybody else and made my job easier. But I threatened him. I said, if you don't want to fall in line, you got to go. Right? Nobody gave me those options. They never said, yo, let me work with you. We see the power that you have over other people. Why don't we get together? They think, let me get this person in line, and then everybody else will get in line. But doing it in the wrong way. Don't try to bribe me. Don't try to bribe leaders, and don't force them.
Encourage them.
Encourage them, and do it carefully.
So you feel that your pigmentation in your skin had a big factor to do with it.
Big factor.
Now, there may be something else as well.
What's that?
It's truth be known, anyone that sees you, you're no chubby guy. Did you ever feel that also your physique may have had something to do with it? Like the fact that you take care of yourself, that you are knowledgeable about your health, you present yourself in a way that sometimes people actually take offense to that?
Not really, because I would say that if they didn't use me for certain things. Like they tried to use me for a commercial. They used me for one that was a commercial that only took place. It was an internal commercial. And because I've come from that world, I told them, as long as it's internal, you can use it. And I was paid to do it. And that's where it stayed. After I shot the commercial, I signed a contract that said it would go XYZ. They came back to me with another contract saying, can this be distributed somewhere else outside of the commercial? I said, well, we got to redo the contract and it got to be different. So they don't like that kind of questioning by people. Like some people go, if you have a job and your boss said, hey man, you know what? We didn't think to do such and such. We're just going to have you sign this new document and then we can get it to everybody so everybody can have the commercial. Everybody else was like, yeah, sure. They signed it. And then I didn't sign it. I'm the only one that didn't sign it. And I'm telling you, they actually said, well, until Glenn signs it, we can't let you guys see the commercial for your family. And then people were mad at me who didn't know better. And I said, I'm fighting it for you as much as myself. Those kind of tricks, like don't play stupid. Like I know I've been in this world. I know my value, and I know that you can't come with a new contract without talking about a new deal.
Yeah.
So they didn't like that part about me.
1,000%. But the funny thing is, they would have had that same movement if it was for them.
Oh yeah. If it had to do with somebody and their kid, they're gonna be like, oh, that was a smart move. But because it was me, people looked at it, and then they came to me a second time. This was down the road. They came to me straight up and they said, listen, we like what you're doing with the 95killers movement. We would love to interview you. It was for this it was an infomercial that just said that because of the knowledge that you gained from this company is why you were able to start your business. But meanwhile, I started my business. I told them I started my business because there was a lack of growth here. And they were like, oh, okay. And then they said, why do you think that was? And I said, because I'm a black man, and because, and it's true, because here's the thing. I've seen people get position, not just me. I've seen other minorities passed over and put in position sometimes as only like a mascot. I'm not no mascot. So you're not going to give me a management position and then I have no power or no say so. So I've seen people get management position and they're like, well, this person's black. And I'm like, yeah, but he got no backbone.
Man, there's a lot right there. When you're there moving as a boss, but not the boss, that is not really
that's
well
never
looked
gonna
at.
work. Listen, one thing I could tell anybody listening to this, right, is I know that doesn't make any sense. I know that when you're in a position, there's certain things that you have to do because you're working for somebody. But there is a level at which you cannot let somebody just do anything they want to you just because you work for them.
So when you left,
I was thrown out.
You were thrown out, which is good. Which is good. Some people need to be encouraged to be the best them that they can be. So you were encouraged, but Corona assisted in that.
Corona assisted, and we're not talking about the beer. We're talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of people have used this as an opportunity to build, to grow their personal dreams. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have not been able to do so. What do you think is the difference?
Okay, so the difference is, I could just speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I'll tell you my thoughts on it, is I started my 95killers podcast and the movement before COVID hit. I was feeling limited by my job. I was already thinking of ways in which to earn an extra income. I wasn't 100% sure I was going to leave my job yet. It wasn't until I started suffering those indecencies more and more and being written up, I said, you know what, maybe I should just leave. And so I started planning my escape. Now, there's people that will be, people will do everything to you or to them.
That you allow them to?
That you allow them to do to you. And you will decide to stick around and you have a reason. Now, I respect that reason. But you see what you have here? Like, so I'm in your house, right? We're looking at, you have a roadcaster, something that I have. You have professional mics. You have a camera. You have a job, but you've invested in something that will eventually bring you stability and money, right, down the road. Like I always tell people, you cannot pass your job or your education on to your children, but you can pass your business on. So the fact that you invested in those things, you are already on the path. I started investing the money. And that's why I stayed at the job. I have so much equipment that I could do a radio studio in my crib. So basically what I'm saying is the people that don't take advantage of the time, and whether that is money that you're making from your job, the reason why, whatever reason you have for staying where you're at, is maybe it's your vacation. You love taking vacation. Maybe you love the lifestyle that you live. It's just a matter of prioritizing and cutting back on some of those expenditures and really investing in yourself and your family, and then you can move ahead. If they taking your time, that you can't be with your family, how are you going to take that money and go and buy something that doesn't bring you closer to making an extra income for yourself?
I encourage you to do things you encourage me. We feed off of one another in order to build. And you were actually one of the first people I contacted. On that drive to New York, I said, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast.
Right.
But I had no clue how to do it. I went to your place. I was referred some equipment. Come to find out, it was good equipment, but not what I needed. And I had to go from there. It's been a process. I invested that time into the equipment. I would always reach out for you. What about this? What about that? But at the same time, which was funny, you would always tell me, buy this $600 mic. So I'm like, yo, my man, I have a family. I have kids. I have mortgage. I cannot go out and buy a $600 mic, much less 2 or 3 of them. It can't happen. So what I started doing was I started investing the time and researching, because there's always that Bentley out there, but not everyone can afford a Bentley. You have to work your way up to that. So I always went for the best cost-effective equipment, and it does the job. Ladies and gents, if you do not invest in yourself, do the research, because you can't always get what somebody else has, but get what works best for you.
No, but I'll add something to that. Something that I have to say. You maybe you don't see it from this angle, but when you started out, I had my podcast already started, and when you started yours and you were trying to get into the game, I told you to get the best that you could afford. And at the time, you weren't getting the best that you could afford. And I knew that, because I've seen you spend money on things that, and I told you this to your face. I'm not going to shy away from that. I said, when you really invest in your equipment, that means like the same way I see people buy like $1,000 or whatever they're having, or they like a certain lifestyle. When you start to invest in yourself, you have to
come with that same energy.
No, you have to forfeit some of that lifestyle.
Oh, well, that is true too. Yeah.
Listen, you can't do it all, right? But you have to say what is important to you. So the important thing to you is, you saw, as I saw, you have an education in medicine, and you saw that sometimes they didn't treat you in a certain way. You had to even lie about being black. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My point is that when you started to really invest in your equipment, then I seen, even in yourself, you started to invest more into the podcast. It started to be less about cost-effective equipment and like getting the best equipment that I can afford.
True.
Right?
That you can afford.
And before that, when you invited me to the podcast, when you didn't have, the investment, I was like, well, I don't want to be on your podcast. Because listen,
I'll pass.
And the reason why people will always say, well, why would you do that? That's your cousin. I'm like, well, let me tell you something. The worst thing you could do to a friend or family member is to encourage them to be mediocre. I would never do that to my family.
Yeah, that is.
I won't do it to a stranger because I don't want to waste time. But to a family member, I want him to know that I respect the grind And now you're putting the same energy that you put in your job into your I see it into your podcasting.
Actually, more.
Yeah, but I see it, and that's the difference. When you see it and you respect it, that's what I'm sitting here, because you're my family. But most importantly, I know this is a serious interview, and I came on time because it's a serious interview.
Yeah.
And I only do serious interviews.
I appreciate you for that. And we actually started a little bit later because you were showing me things. As I said, it's always good when you can have people that encourage growth. All too often, a lot of people have yes men around them. Those are the people that you don't need around.
Well, tell them why we started late. You can't just say it. You gotta. They don't know what happened.
Oh,
why'd
well,
you start late?
We started a little late because apparently my house is nicer than I thought. And I was being encouraged to actually utilize the environment so that I can accentuate the feel, give that feel to the listener, give that feel to those that are about the talking sweet life.
Listen, you sound like a doctor right now. Let me tell you what my cousin's trying to say. My cousin has a beautiful home, and he's doing a podcast here. And I'm like, I'm from New York, so in New York, I'm doing my podcast on my couch. I try to make it as sprucey as possible. I come to his house, I see this beautiful backyard with these statues, and he's trying to do a podcast in this little damp little corner. I'm like, bro, use the scenery. I know people in New York and in other places who don't have a nice spot that they will green screen a background into the area.
It did look like well, let me say this. It's not that nice, ladies and gents.
It's
not
beautiful.
No, it's not that nice that anybody needs to run up in here and try to take anything, all right?
Whatever.
It's decent.
I'll take some stuff about it.
Yo, I'm a hardworking dude. Ain't nothing. And that's a whole nother thing. I'm a hardworking dude, as you as well. Nothing was given. Neither one of us had anything but knowledge passed down to us. But we've decided to take that knowledge, accentuate it, and make it do for us what it needed to do.
I mean, we're from a different time era where there was no internet like that we had access to. So the fact that you had to go to the library and get information, there's nothing in this world that I can't or you can't figure out if you spend time into it. So one of the things I'll say is spend time in becoming knowledgeable, and also be comfortable with saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you'll move on. Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Tell me.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought this up, because just now when we were getting set up, Jay has 2 daughters, right? So you have one is 7.
7 and 10.
7 and 10. So his 7-year-old is saying to him, I keep hearing her saying the name of his podcast. And I'm like, what is she saying? Yo, his daughter, his 7-year-old daughter was looking for his podcast on YouTube. I was like, you're looking for his podcast? And I said, but why? I said, do you listen to podcasts? She goes, never. I said, so why are you looking for your father's podcast? And she said, because I want to know what my father does. So that brings me to my question for you.
Sure, hit me.
You have 2 daughters, right? Your podcast, I mean, this is probably the most PG podcast you've ever done. But your podcast has a lot of risque undertones. Did you ever expect that your daughter would look for your podcast this early?
This early? Absolutely not. So the podcast that I'm doing now, Talking Sweet, is not my first rodeo. I used to do a show at a college, and because, hey, I'm a father, I've had to bring them to the studio in which I did my show with them there. And it was cute. They would put stickers, Daddy's my champion, all this stuff all over the window. My co-host loved it. He said, oh, this is so cute. Now, moving forward, yes, some of my material is risque, but the life that we live can be risque. I don't believe that anyone should be sheltered from all that's out there, and at the same time, they'll eventually know. I would have never thought that she would ask for my show at 7. My wife came downstairs and was like, what are you listening to? I was like, no, baby, that one is. She said, no, absolutely not. Right. They're talking about co-parenting and this and that. And so you do protect your children from certain types of knowledge, but at the same time, you protect them from it because you know eventually they will learn. But you don't have to encourage that right now.
So your podcast was it YouTube she was looking on?
She was looking on YouTube.
Okay, so why isn't your podcast under explicit, not for kids? Because she can find it.
Some of the episodes are under explicit.
They are. Okay, so the one she found wasn't under explicit?
No, it was not.
Okay.
Some of them are under explicit, but at the same time, they'll be able to find all of this.
Right.
The internet is its own encyclopedia. And do I feel comfortable with my children as they get older listening to the things that I've put out there? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? Their friends are going to tell them much worse. I want them to feel comfortable that they can come to daddy because daddy talks about this, daddy talks about that. This boy, this girl, this person told me about something. My dad spoke about this. Let me speak to my father about it. Because you know what? My father's not going to lie to me. He's not going to tell me no BS while someone else is what this person can't be said. It can't be real. Let me ask my father. My father does keep it 1,000.
I mean, it all depends on one of the things, and I'll tell you that the pandemic, I've learned from the pandemic is and I was talking to a friend yesterday. He celebrated his 30th birthday, and he had an amazing event. He did a Zoom call. And
I was about to say, wait, amazing event.
Amazing event.
Oh, on Zoom.
Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
Shout out to my boy Anton. He's actually the dude that does the music at the end of my podcast.
Oh, well, your music is dope. I gotta hit him up.
Music, he's dope. Yeah. So I tell you what, he had a thing. He had people from around the world that showed up. Even it was a country that I forget which country it was, but there was a game going on. And they said, listen, there's an important game going on. And I was like, oh, this guy's going to leave soon. He said, but your birthday was more important than this game that I'm at, right? So I'll put it to you like this. One thing that I've learned from the pandemic is investing our time into things and with people that get it. Some people don't get it, and they're not supposed to. Like, one thing that I've learned is just like, when somebody doesn't get something, we could force them to try to get it. You might make this person see certain things, but for me, if at a certain age, you're beyond teaching to me. Like, people that want to learn, I teach. I'd rather invest time in somebody who wants to learn and says, look, I don't understand it, I want to know more. I will invest in you. Because think about this. Every moment that you spend investing on a person who may get it, as opposed to somebody who gets it and wants to learn, you losing time. That's why you see I'm never in a rush.
True.
I'm almost never in a rush because I only invest in people that want to grow.
You know something?
I don't water dead flowers.
You saying that. So, as we know, I'm a working man. And one thing that I've come to find out is that some people that listen to my show don't actually want me to grow. They're taking notes. They're actually out here thinking, what is he going to say? How can I report him? Some people that listen, some people that entertain, is just like Mike Tyson. Do you know how many people watch Mike Tyson fight wanting him to lose, wanting him to get knocked out? But my man trained. My man, he did every defensive move to make sure that was not the case. Right. And we also have to maneuver like that. We also have to bob and weave. So people see what you're doing, and there are those that lock in. They're entertained. They love it. They respect it. They encourage it. They're supportive of it. But there are also those that seem to want to see your downfall. Why? I say that's their issue, not mine. How do you entertain, or how do you engage those?
Well, we'll put it this way: when there's a quote from a movie that I love. It's I believe it was American Gangster, and the quote was, you could have friends, you could have enemies and have a lot of money, or you could be broke and you could have friends. So the thing about it, when you are not doing anything, people, and I won't say a vast majority, but a vast majority, I must say, that don't do what they're supposed to do. They hang around with other people that don't do what they're supposed to do. And there's a comfort in that, because you can't be judged by somebody that's doing worse than you. When you're around somebody that is striving to be better, at first you're like, man, look at that. Isn't that cute? And people love to support the come up. But when you start to hit those marks and you start to go into their area of where they think that they are and where you are, people get jealous. People try to stop you. People close to you, family members, friends, it doesn't matter. There's no person that won't put a little salt in there. The difference is when you no longer see it. I no longer see it. I see it, but it doesn't affect me to the point where
I'm like, how do you not see it?
No, I see it. I'm aware of a lot of stuff that happens. The thing about it, I used to wonder why. I stop wondering why.
Exactly.
It's not my job to figure out why you don't want to grow.
Yeah.
Why me growing is a assault on your business or on yourself. So the best thing that I would tell anybody listening to this is hunker down, keep people around you that want to celebrate you, but also there's a part that people never say this part is you have to learn to celebrate other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't celebrate you because you can't be comfortable with saying, this is not my time, this is their time. You know how many times I've been in a situation where a person they're at a spot or they're at a place and they are there to celebrate someone else and they make it about themselves. Whether it's a birthday or it's a wedding, I've seen people find a way, oh, I don't eat that, I need the best of this, and just make it a whole scene where me, if I'm at your wedding and I'm there to be there for your event, I'm not going to be no divo or no diva. So the thing that I want people to understand is worrying about those people and how they'll respond. They're not well. So listen, they're not well. So you thinking that you thinking
There's a deficiency there.
There's a deficiency. So if you thinking, oh, I'm going to show them by doing better, you're not showing them anything. A person who doesn't want you to win, no matter what you do to win, no matter where you climb, they will say you got it for some ill reason. You cheated. You did this. Oh, it's because this. Oh, it's because you black and they gave you a thing. If you're white, they're going to say, oh, it's because you're not black. Every person will have a reason why you're winning and they're not.
Just diving into your personal life. Are you married?
I'm not married.
You were married.
I was married.
How do you maneuver having an ex-wife? Does she support what you do now? Do you support what she's done even after the breakup? Because I never understand how is it that people come into their lives, with someone that they said that they love, someone that they encourage, someone that encouraged them, and now you're like FDB.
Nah, I'll put it this way. That's a tough question, and I'll tell you why. Not for me, but I think it's a tough question in general. Expecting support from anybody. Right?
Not expecting.
No, but here's the thing.
Okay.
You said that some people, they say they loved you and now they don't support you, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'll put it this way. Yes, my ex-wife is supportive. I'm supportive of her. But beyond that, like, she has another life. I have another life outside of that. I can't factor in whatever another person is doing on their end. I think that when I think about support, even from somebody that's with you, with your current wife, with your current girlfriend, when you learn to stop looking for support from anybody,
yeah,
and I don't say that in a negative way. I say that in a way of you're running things by other people to get validation. That's what it really boils down to. That's what it boils down to. If you're a man or you're a woman and you go to your spouse and you say, "Did I get fat? Am I fatter?" You gained 20, 30 pounds and you're not comfortable with 30 pounds, don't ask anybody else. Because guess what? They could say, oh, you're perfect the way you are. Get another 40. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the best thing that you could do in life. And this is not me trying to sidestep your question. My ex does support. I just support her. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the best thing in life is to do is you leave your family. Let your family do family stuff. Let your mother make pumpkin pie. Your mother doesn't have to log into your podcast or watch your interviews or do all. And your sister and your brothers don't have to buy your merch. People will do it if they want to, and that's cool. But this idea that they must do it, and I think that's where people are falling short and not keeping their eye on the prize. Let me tell you something. I only focus on people who I don't know. I don't focus on people that I know. I looked at my family listens to what I'm saying on a podcast and will learn more from the podcast because I'm not talking to them directly.
Yeah.
They could take it as they see it. That sounds like he's talking about me. Sometimes maybe I may be thinking about somebody and I'm thinking about a bunch of people. Just live your life and stop worrying about people validating whatever you're doing. Support is something that you're going to have to get comfortable in not having.
Learn to live with it. Learn to live without it.
A person that feeds you controls you. You give power to the person that feeds you. Like if you're a dog and you have to wait for your owner to come in and feed you, that owner, that's why the dogs are waiting for you to come home.
Yeah.
If you're a wolf, you're the meal.
You're going out.
You're the dinner for the wolf. You don't feed your wolf, the wolf will eat you.
For that reason, wolves are not house pets.
They're not good house pets, right? But that's the thing. We get accustomed to people catering to us and having to support what we do, and we don't need that.
Well, so moving on,
Yes.
as you have,
Yeah.
and now you're in a relationship with a young lady that I find to be very beautiful, not just on the physical aspect of things, but actually mentally. She doesn't really say much. She's quite the quiet bird. She doesn't really say much, at least to me.
Well, listen.
We went out the other night. I was like, oh, so she really does talk a lot, but she doesn't really say much. And I respect. She's like, what did she say the other day to me? She said, you're a jerk. and I love when people are comfortable enough to say that to my face.
So I don't know what the question is. so I'll try to answer it. If you tell me, what's the question exactly?
Well, the question is, it's not really a question. It's more of a statement because she is doing her own thing.
Right.
You guys, from the outside looking in, it seems you guys are in a very busy relationship. She does her own thing. COVID has made it so that she does her business remotely now.
Right.
You do your own thing. You're remotely as well, correct?
Correct.
So how is that maneuvering in a relationship where both of you are home now, doing your own things remotely and growing your brand, growing what you do, and at the same time being in a relationship? Are there difficulties? Does it make things easier? Does it make things worse seeing each other more? How is that?
So here's the thing. I find that most people, when they're in a relationship, they think that because I can see my spouse or the person that I'm with, that means that I have to talk to them. Sometimes my girlfriend is doing, right now, she told me I'm working till 12 today. She's at the home. Like, we on vacation. She is in my family's home, and she's working till 12. I know what time she's working to. That means that if I come through from this interview and it's before 12, I'm not going to go into the room, hey, babe, and start talking to her if she's going to be with clients. So I think that one of the things that you can benefit from being in a relationship, and when the person you're with is busy, it's a good thing. The only time I've ever had a problem in relationships is when the person that I'm with is not busy. When you're not busy, then stuff starts to creep into your mind because your mind develops things to work on. And if it's not a business, it works on problems. And it creates problems that aren't there, and then you have to figure them out. So I find that if a person doesn't have anything to do, what they do is they figure out how I should do what I'm doing. And vice versa. If I don't have anything I know when I don't have anything to do if I start picking at stuff. I know when she doesn't have anything to do when she's like, why are you doing this now? Why can't we be watching a movie instead? I'm like, do you have something that you need to do? Because I'm working till this time.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, my relationship is part of my business. When my business is not doing well, the relationship does not doing well. When the relationship is not doing well, the business is not doing well.
Wow.
It's part of it.
I respect it.
It's the truth.
I respect.
Think about it. Can you think that it's fun to argue with the person that you're with and then go do a podcast? I'll be in the wrong spirit.
I wouldn't know. I have an incredible wife. I got to say, she is
incredible.
So, hey, listen, I only choose the best. But she is supportive, and there's been times when I've questioned the motive of that support. But for the most part, I say she's supportive. I appreciate everything she does because, as we all know, when you are doing one thing, you're taking time away from something else.
But I got to put a caveat to that.
Uh-oh.
There was times in my past where I overworked myself. That is not a good thing to do because then, like I said, it's part of your relationship is balanced with your work. That means it should be synergic, right? That means you shouldn't be working more than you are giving to the other person. When you're not focused, right? Like let's say I'm talking to my girl, she's looking at her phone. I'm like, you need to focus on what we're talking about, and vice versa. I'll be on my phone playing my chess game, and she's talking, and I'm like, you lose that connection there. She's saying something, and it just darts off, and I'm like, damn, I should have. And it has to do with my attention span. Like I tell you, it's something that I work on all the time because it does matter when somebody's paying attention to you as to when they divvy off into some
It's
other
the
realm.
truth. It's the truth.
You might be thinking, I'm just doing something real quick, and then they totally
They see it another way.
They see you, and then they drift off. So one of the things that I would say is that in terms of overworking, just to touch back on that, is we are in a society where people think that they have to work super hard and extra, and if you're not working, you're being lazy. And I think it's just about finding balance. And you start finding balance when you stop investing time in things. Like, I know when you told me earlier, we talked about that situation with that manager, and you were going to give them a second chance. When you stop giving people second chances, when you realize that second chance is 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, which seems like nothing, but it's something that is 20, 40 minutes of your life you can't get back, for someone to sit and be like, I still don't get it. And now you wasted that 40 minutes, and that 40 minutes could have been spent talking to your wife, talking to anybody else.
That is true.
I'm telling you, I have the most time for a bit. As busy as I am, I have the most time because I don't invest in things like that. And it's when you think, when I didn't have money, I would, and I don't have a lot of money now, but when you don't have money, you think time's nothing. Time is everything. What if I told you that I donated $800 to a homeless shelter yesterday? What do you think about that? Is that impressive?
I think it's good. I think it's pretty good.
It's pretty good. What if I told you I spent the whole day repainting the homeless shelter?
That is actually way better.
And you know why it's better? Because I invested my time in it. Because $800, you was like, that's impressive. But you said you spent your day down there, which, by the way, it cost me nothing to spend my day, but it cost me my time. That's why people write checks instead of going and sitting with some kid and teaching them something.
Yeah.
Because if you have, let's say you got $1 million in the bank, $1,000 check ain't nothing.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
Imagine sitting down there, your personal time, sitting with that kid,
and how much more that means to them.
How much more it means to him and anybody else that you know. That's why when I tell you, I look at time different than other people do. You might say, I got time. It's nothing but a 30 minutes to talk to that guy. That's 30 minutes of your time you could have spent somewhere else.
That is very true. See, listen, that's why hey, nothing's off the table when talking sweet. That's why we have these conversations. It's always a learning moment.
No doubt.
Listen, sometimes my daughters, my friends, whoever, my haters, they're going to learn from this stuff one way or the other. And it's funny because we're talking about this stuff, and it makes me think back because of what you said about being distracted. We were driving the other day, and we were talking, and you were incredibly silent. And I'm like, yo, you all right? You listening to me? And you was like, no, I'm listening to you. And then it was you, your young lady, and myself. We were there eating. And she said, you're not even listening. She said, are you awake? I was like, my man looks awake. Like, yo, he can sleep with his eyes open. That's hot. I wish I could do that. Right. And it made me think about how I have conversations with people, about the level of interaction that I have. Truth be told, we all have issues. If you say you have no issues, you're a liar. And one thing that's a big thing for me is I really don't look people in the face when I'm talking to them. One of the few times when I actually do is when I'm doing a podcast.
Right.
And because of that, I actually put more effort into, my wife says that I never look her in the face when we're having a conversation. Now, because I see how much it means to others when I'm having an interview, I now put that same effort because I care about her. I care about how she feels. So I put that same effort into when she and I are talking. So the same things that you invest into your business, into those things that you want to see grow, you do have to have that same investment into your personal life because it matters.
I agree. And what you said about why I'm quiet when I'm listening is because sometimes my attention span is short, and I used to cut people off all the time. And what I realized, and it's something that somebody said to me. You just did it now.
I'm guilty.
You just did it right now. Something that somebody told me years ago that I never forgot is they said some people listen to hear and understand, and some people listen to respond. And I was like, damn. And they didn't say that that's what I was doing, but I took it. Why would somebody tell me something like that? And I was like, yo, and then I evaluated myself, and what I did think about is, even when you argue with somebody, now I'll be listening to see if I could find something in that argument to agree with. Before I was looking, how could I defend myself? And when you're doing that, you're not really listening. That's why I think sometimes people think that I'm not listening. And I got to be careful because sometimes I look like I'm zoning out, but I'm really taking in your words mean a lot to me.
Listen, bro, I appreciate you for having this conversation with me. You know, you here talking sweet about 95 killers. We bringing the two together. It's a beautiful moment, and I appreciate you for it.
No, thank you, man. It's a pleasure being here, man, for real.
All right, there you go. Ladies and gents, gents and ladies, as always, it's a no face, no case scenario.
Well, it's no face. It's a face today. It's a face in case.
There you go.
You got my name.
There you go. It's a no face, no case scenario, but sometimes you got to just put it out there. My man, glengraham4.0, to heck with what you guys doing with 2.0. He's moved beyond that, and we appreciate you.
So let me just drop where they can find me in the podcast. I'm sure you're going to ask me that, so I'll just let people know. So if you're looking for me on Instagram, you can find me on 95killers, and that's just 95 and killers. No Z, that's KILLERS. For my personal page, it is glengraham4.0. And the website for my podcast is 95killers.com. You can find my merch, just everything's there. And I look forward to, hearing this interview because, like I said, I'm real proud of my cousin here. I've seen you grow with the podcast and the people that you interview, the topics that you're discussing. They're not all the ones that I'm comfortable discussing, but he kept it a little PG for me today because I was like, I would have answered whatever he had. But the fact that he's asking about the business and just reaching out to anybody out there who's out there and you're at a 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong like with a 9 to 5. I know my business called 95 Killers, but I would just say that what it really encompasses is that getting another stream of income coming in that's not depending on some person deciding whether you eat or not. Because when you're waiting on somebody who's got to feed you, you're giving them a lot of power, a lot of control. So basically, you'll hear on the podcast people that I've interviewed that are entrepreneurs that have left their traditional J job to go out there and hustle and find a way for themselves. And my cousin is on his way to becoming a 9-5 killer because he's out here doing this podcast. My name is Glenn Graham, founder and host of the 9-5 Killers podcast, and I've been talking sweet with SweetBaby Jay. You guys take care of yourselves and keep killing those comfort zones. Till next time, peace.
That's about it.